to another For the Love of Finance, the conversation and podcast with practical insights and useful tips to help you level up your career in your finance organization. And today, I'm super excited for this conversation with the CEO of Vertice, Eldar Tuvey. Welcome to For the Love of Finance.
Well, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, so before we get started, tell a little introduction about yourself. I know you had ScanSafe, you had some pretty great opportunities, but share a little bit about your background and your experience.
Sure. So, obviously, I'm based in London, in the UK, and you're quite right. This is like my third relatively successful business that we've had. The previous two businesses were more in the cybersecurity space. The first one was ScanSafe. We exited that to Cisco a few years ago, and then more recently, Wandera, which also exited to a US tech company called Jamf. Vertice is a business that I've started with my brother. We've been going, I think, two and a half years, something like that. It's going really well. It's fantastic. We've got offices in the States, East Coast, Australia, Sydney, a really large development center in Czechia as well. And we're about like 200 people now. So it's grown really quickly, and we're just, psyched to keep building it.
Nice. I love that background too. And my first lead-off question for you, Eldar, is as a serial entrepreneur, what made you take the leap of faith to jump into the SaaS and cloud spend management space?
So I think when we started thinking about what we could do and how to build a business, we really hit upon Vertice as a great idea. We understood it intuitively. In the previous businesses that we've had, we were selling software, sort of SaaS software in the security space to many different enterprise customers. We understood the difficulties of the renewal process, of the negotiation process. And what we realized also at being fast growing businesses, we were buying a lot of tools. And so we found it really difficult to keep visibility on all the tools that we had. As soon as you sort of buy a tool, you onboard it takes a while, and then suddenly there's a renewal again, and again you need more licenses, more modules. It becomes really difficult to manage, and you want to focus on building your business as opposed to buying and maintaining software. And I remember when we first started, the whole idea behind SaaS was, or on-demand software as it was known then, was that it was going to remove a lot of the pain of having perimeter kind of like software on premises or on-prem software. But what's happened is because there's so many different tools, you're like constantly managing, renewing, subscribing, updating, upgrading, and it becomes a real pain. And so we understood that there was a real pain point for most fast-growing companies, and that we thought we could solve it. We knew that there's other features of software is that most B2B enterprise software there's a massive lack of transparency in the pricing. So some companies are paying 5 times, maybe even 8 times what the other guys are paying, and so there's big discrepancy between the bottom payers and the top payers. It's a real pain, as I said, to constantly monitor, understand how many licenses you need, understand where you've got duplication within the enterprise. So you've got different tools, and as companies expand their offerings, they start encroaching on each other's spaces. So you've got maybe 2 tools that are doing the same thing. When we were raising financing for Vertice, we spoke to a company on the west coast of the US, and the guy said, the CEO there said that they'd done a review of all their design software, and they had 7 different, yeah, exactly. So 7 different design pieces of software, completely duplicated. They made some acquisitions. The French company had the same design software. They didn't want to remove it. The Americans had something. The Chinese had something. So what we realized was that there's a massive consolidation opportunity for us to bring some order, some control to finance teams that were grappling with all these tools and the proliferation of all these tools.
Yeah, I love what you mentioned on that, Eldar, because I've also looked at it for the office of the CFO and looked at the SaaS and cloud management space, and it's really had in like 3 different waves, right? Before the pandemic, SaaS spend cloud management for the office of the CFO, the SMB mid-sized company, that wasn't the priority that we went to, right? We were focused on, hey, if we're trying to drive cash runway, if we're trying to increase our customer lifetime value, we're going to be focused on the people or the product side, right? Then the pandemic happened. and you had this influence of technology companies and companies overall that naturally didn't have a remote first workforce. They just inundated with these technologies. And Eldar, like you said, the technology companies, they were like, cha-ching, it's time to like load up. And then during that period, you had just countless people getting Zoom licenses, getting Salesforce licenses, getting Teams licenses, and it was like a free-for-all in terms of bringing software to the business. Now when you look post-pandemic, where a lot more organizations, a lot more CFOs are trying to be cost-conscious about the business, you got some macro factors around recessions, you got a lot of things that are affecting the office of the CFO that they're looking for cost optimization. And now the SaaS and cloud management space and spend is now a priority. So in that office of the CFO, it's inundated, right? It's SaaS and cloud management software solutions have exploded on the number of solutions that are out there. What would be your advice for that CFOs that's thinking about bringing on a partner or a technology solution to help them manage their SaaS and cloud management space? What would be that first step you would help those CFOs with?
Well, so it's great that you asked that question. That's exactly what we saw with our customer base. Often, SaaS costs, your software costs, your cloud costs, which have been increasing super rapidly over the last few years and are forecast to continue growing.
Absolutely.
They're the two kind of areas that finance teams and VPs of finance, CFOs that we talk to are most concerned about. I think, in terms of advice, the first thing you need to do is understand exactly what is going on in your landscape, have some control over those spend areas. And that's not to say you necessarily need to cut them, but you do need to make them more efficient and optimized. And the first way to do that is really understand what exactly is happening within your SaaS stack, your software stack, and also your cloud costs. And that's why when we were thinking about Vertice and how to try and help our customers, we thought that putting those two things together in a really integrated fashion, your SaaS costs and your cloud costs, all optimized through one platform, is the right way to approach it. We've seen, for example, something like 33% of your cloud costs are often wasted, and they're not optimized, and it's difficult for companies. We believe that companies should be focused on their priorities, which is to build their business, build their products, expand, do more marketing, reach more customers, and they don't really need to focus on these areas and leave it up to specialists like ourselves or software that we have, which is constantly monitoring and constantly trying to optimize. And that's the approach that we've taken. We believe that we have an advantage over a regular customer in that we have amazing pricing database and many benchmark pricing of different software products, different ways to optimize your cloud. And I think that helps our customers. We are talking to these vendors, the big software vendors, day in, day out. That allows us to build a kind of playbook on how you should approach these negotiations. And it gives us, we have that specialization, and then allows our customers to focus on their core businesses, which obviously is where they derive the most value from. So that's how we've approached it. I think we've managed to build a very significant customer base. As customers join our network, we also learn a lot more. We have access to more software vendors, and that's really helped us grow and keep that kind of momentum going. And the other thing I think that's quite interesting about what we do is that we are completely independent. So we only work on behalf of our customers. Most of them currently are in Western Europe, US, and Australia and Southeast Asia. And we are completely independent, so we don't take any revenues from software vendors, from AWS, Azure, Google. We only work on their behalf, and we have their best interests at heart. And that, I think, allows us to position ourselves as being their advisor and their trusted partner.
Absolutely, man. I love that. And one of the points that you mentioned that I want to dive a little deep into is that partnership aspect, right? When you look at a small to medium size, even mid-level CFO, right? Naturally, procurement is not going to be our strong suit, right? There's a lot of, I've led a lot of high growth finance teams, and that was always like the negotiation side, and you like, I don't know if we're getting the best price, and I'm shopping around my community and reaching out to other CFOs and like, hey, our Salesforce license priced at this, what is yours at? And brought upon a great point. This is where providers and technology partners like Vertice can come in and say, hey, Office of the CFO, we know that you're focused on growing the business. We know you're focused on forecasting, manage through uncertainty and challenge. Let us be partners to kind of help you make sure that you can optimize that cost, right? Because right now, I think looking at SaaS spend and cloud management costs, that's a great first step for CFOs. Traditionally, a lot of CFOs, Eldar, the first place they go when cost cutting comes, right? They go to the people. It's like lay off here, lay off there. You know?
Yeah, well, thankfully we don't have anything to do with that, so we don't get involved with people. But obviously, after your payroll costs, your software and cloud costs are your next biggest categories.
It's the next biggest one, and for me, that's where I think that mindset for the office of the CFO should change. It's like, don't let that be your people as the first place to start. People are the most valuable assets in any organization. I was reading an article, and they looked at the S&P 500. As of right now, there's over $21 trillion of asset value in intangibles, right? Intangible assets on the Fortune 500 S&P 500 balance sheets are intangible assets. So to me, that's all the intellectual property. That's all the things you can't quantify as a CFO. Yeah. So you want to make sure, and I think for CFOs of the future, as you think about that way to cost optimize your business, looking at SaaS and cloud management spend as a first step, right? Look at that. How can we optimize it? How can we bring on partners who, like you mentioned, experts, have the community, and have the connection that can bring clarity for our operations? I think that's a new version of the CFO of the future, is clarity for operations. And
I completely agree. And I think what we've tried to do is support those customers in achieving those objectives. And we're learning all the time. Like, we don't have all the answers, but we're learning all the time and improving our own processes, our playbooks, our platform, the kind of analytics that we generate, and that all goes to help our customers become more efficient. One of the areas that we, for example, launched was what we call usage analytics. That looks at all your licensing. Often you license, for example, 1,000 licenses of a vendor, and you're only using 800 or 600.
Thanks.
And so often there's something like 33% wastage just on licenses, and we occasionally also see where you're under licensed. So we help CFOs understand where there's overages and where they're going to get unexpected invoices from software vendors, and that helps them plan and forecast going forward. So I think that's another area where we've been very helpful. And the other thing that we're now focused on is the whole kind of workflow end to end of procurement. And so I think we can bring all your SaaS stack, your cloud costs, all underpinned with our procurement workflow. So everything works together in a seamless fashion, and that's just like your one place where you can see your whole enterprise and understand exactly all your costs, where they're going, what usage you've got, what's coming up for renewal, where there's opportunities to optimize. So we think it's a real helpful way to support our CFOs in our platform.
Man, you're making me so excited, because when I hear centralized platform to look at everything, that's like the gold for all those CFOs looking back at this. When you're evaluating technology solutions and you want to have that central place, like Eldar mentioned, that's the best place to start. Centralized, where you have, it's almost like the CFO's command ship, right?
Well, that's what we're trying to build towards. I think we've still got a way to go, but that's certainly, we've made great strides there already, and I think that's where we're going to get to.
Absolutely. So Eldar, I know we're having a great conversation, and we can't have a conversation with the Office of the CFO and technology and not talk about the elephant in the room, which is generative AI. AI has completely disrupted the Office of the CFO. So my question to you is, do you think this disruption of the Office of the CFO, is it overhyped, or is it going to be a game changer for CFOs?
I think we've seen our customers buying more and more AI tools. So we've seen spend across our customer base go up for these kind of tools. So obviously there's a lot of interest, and we all know about it. I believe that it's going to be a complete game changer, but I think it's going to take us a while to get there. And so there are certainly some things that it's super helpful for now. We ourselves use automation wherever we can to kind of improve give us more speed, more visibility, and more control. One area which I think is really helpful for CFOs, for example, which we've invested behind, is the whole idea of document scanning and bringing in information from all their different contracts, invoices, POs, and using AI to basically glean the information from all these different documents so that you can immediately search through legal contracts, NDAs, what have you. And so you can immediately get the information that you need at your fingertips, compare between contracts, compare between invoices, and choose the information that you need. We've invested behind that, and I think that's another tool, for example, that CFOs will find very helpful in being able to get access to the information they need. I think there are going to be certain areas where AI is going to be super helpful, and in time that will come through. Right now, it's still technologies that need some investment and need some work, but over time will definitely be a game changer.
Yeah, I think for me too, it's like the office of the CFO. I remember Eldar talking at the AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountant Conference, about 6 years ago. And we had this topic of, AI, is AI going to take my job? And I remember mentioning that, talking about this 6 years ago, way before ChatGPT. This is like back then, right? This is 6 years ago seemed like in the status of the world a long time ago, definitely in the office of the CFO. And I remember talking about it, and it was about how AI is meant to level us up in terms of value that we're providing. It kind of highlights what you mentioned. It gets us out of the tactical work, which is really low value. The manual, routine, scanning the contracts, that's not really going to move the needle for growing businesses.
Absolutely, yeah.
You want to have them being involved, being those valued advisors, bringing clarity, being great communicators, collaborating in the business, which to me are skill sets generative AI is never going to take. Right? So my next question I have for you, I know Vertice has customers all across the world, and you work with the office of the CFO. From your vantage point in working with all these great clients and customers, what's a common pain point that you see that from CFOs and clients that you've worked with that Vertice can help solve for them?
Well, I think like the first thing is bringing some control over their whole estate, their software stack, giving some visibility. You'd be amazed how many of our customers still operate on Excel, or up until the time when they start working with us, they operate on Excel. They don't really have a great understanding of when things are coming up for renewal, how much they need to buy, what their costs are going to be for next year for these different software tools. And by centralizing everything, giving them that single pane of glass and visibility into everything, that's the beginning step. After that, you can really start optimizing, cutting out unnecessary wastage, deduplication by having similar tools doing similar things, and really start bringing a lot more efficiency into that spend, which then obviously allows you to invest that in other areas of your business. And that's what we that's the message that we deliver for our customers, is that by using Vertice, we can give you that control and efficiency, which you can then use to invest behind other kind of initiatives that you have. I think that's like the most important thing that we bring. And often, as I said before, we're a trusted partner to them. They rely on us for recommendations. The visibility that we have into all the different vendors in the market, companies like theirs, what other people are doing, helps them make the right technology decisions. And then we're happy to help with that too. And just from our point of view, the way I think about it is that it's not their focus. It shouldn't be their focus. It's not their speciality. They don't have the training. They don't have the pricing data. They don't have the intelligence with respect to all these different vendors and AWS and Azure. And so you leave it up to someone who focuses on that. You go away and do the things that you're great at.
Yeah, it's like that balance what we talked about technology, is that people getting you out of that tactical work of wrangling the contracts and get you to be more strategic in the business.
That's correct. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, one thing I want to talk about. So Vertice just released the Beyond the Numbers report. One of the key insights that it provided in there was like this people pain that a lot of organizations have around the procurement, right? I think it was over 300 plus hours of wasted time that people spend in organizations a lot of the things that you talked about. How can you shed a little bit light from the Beyond the Numbers report, how Vertice specifically solves that people pain that a lot of finance and business organizations are coming across?
So one of the key ways that we do that is through our intelligent workflows product, which is designed to kind of automate the whole procurement piece, the approvals, the intake of the requirements that you have for either the renewal or a new purchase. And by having everything automated, everything at your fingertips in one place where you can see all your different renewals and new purchases, where they are in that workflow, where they're stuck, what is taking too long, what is taking longer than average, where it is in the process, you can really bring some automation. And everything is designed to give you that control, but also to give you speed. And so by having everything in one place with the system behind it to improve how you do those renewals, do those new purchases, you can really start to reduce this manual work that you're talking about, make those procurement people focus on the more strategic procurement that they need to be doing, which really moves the needle for their companies, as opposed to more of the longer tail, lower value, and more sort of manual purchasing. And that's what we think we give them. We give them those insights and also those tools to kind of automate everything. And that's part of this, coming back to what you said about AI, is helping to automate and give intelligence to all of these different elements of the workflow, these tasks that they have to do.
To all those CFOs out there, if you haven't already, make sure to go download and look at the Beyond the Numbers report from Vertice. Not only does it have the people aspect of it, has so much great quantifiable and qualitative insights that can help you on your journey as you evolve and look at your SaaS and spend management. So to all those CFOs going back and looking at this, make sure to go download that. We'll make sure to drop a link in the description and the comments to this one. So make sure to check that one out. Another question I want to ask you, right? We're going in the crystal ball, Eldar. So let's look in the crystal ball. We're looking at 2 to 5 years from now. So that's setting the stage for it. 2 to 5 years from now, when you're looking at that crystal ball for the SaaS and cloud management spend space, what does that look like for the office of the CFO?
I think there's going to be great strides made in onboarding. A lot of the information that's currently held within our enterprise customers is in disparate kind of silos. I think there are going to be great advances made in bringing all of that together so you can onboard much faster. Everything, it's not going to be nirvana, but there are going to be great strides made in being able to collate all of this information in one place.
Eldar, one question I think we get asked is, how can you get the business to be more responsible and aware of capital efficiency?
So I think that's a great question, and that's part of what we're trying to solve with our cloud cost optimization product, which we launched about a year ago and is really trying to help companies be more efficient in terms of their cloud spend. And one of the things we understood when we looked at it more closely is that often the finance teams don't understand where the spend is going in terms of cloud, what are the benefits of it, where it's being used. And the cloud team, who are driving that spend, they find that they can't explain themselves to finance. So one of the areas that in terms of being cost aware, one of the things we've tried to develop in terms of this service is to be able to highlight to both teams, the cloud engineering team and the finance team, have a common sort of single pane of glass of all of their spend, all of their usage on cloud, and so that both teams can really understand they've got a common kind of common framework or foundation to build on in terms of their understanding. From there, they can then have a much more collaborative conversation about how they can move forward, how they can rein in some of these costs. Is everything completely necessary? Where are there room for optimizations? We know from our own experience, first-hand experience, it's very difficult sometimes to understand what is going on in those areas and why the costs keep escalating month on month, why there's, your costs, if you look back over 3 years, your cloud costs have ballooned by 300%, and you're not really, as a finance team, aware of why that's happened and what the benefits of that are. Having the common single point of reference through the Vertice platform for both teams really helps that understanding, and then from there you can build that collaborative, cost-aware culture that we're talking about.
I love that idea and you highlighted this, the difference between like an IT engineering development team and finance, and that lost in translation, right?
Absolutely.
Like we know the numbers, but when you sit across from a developer and engineering person, you're just like, I can't speak zeros and ones.
Yeah, but what happens is that you get an invoice from AWS. It's for the month. It's gone up 32% since last month. You have no idea really. With all the if you've ever seen an invoice, I don't know if you have hundreds of line items and you're not able as a finance team to say what was that exactly spent on, why was it necessary, what benefit we got out of it. And if you go and ask the cloud engineering team, they feel like these are silly questions. It's completely obvious to them why it was necessary, and they don't have time to answer it, and they don't have time to focus on it because they're trying to build more capacity, release new products, do more testing. And so having that common understanding, I think, is really important.
Absolutely. That sets the foundation and baseline. It's like we could speak the same language, and ultimately engineering development can help drive that to finance, but ultimately has the bottom line cost. That's where I think the office of the CFO, being that connector in the business, becomes so important. And when we can branch outside of just our numbers and our spreadsheets and get to learn the business, right? A lot of times when I was leading high growth SaaS companies from a finance perspective, I would sit in with the engineering team. I would look at the sprints. I would be able to tie in, products and features and database enhancements that we were making, and how that quantified to say, okay, we're making this enhancement on the database side, but this could lead to this amount of upsell, cross-sell opportunity. And that connected dot for the engineering and development team was huge, because they don't see that side of the business.
Absolutely.
And when you're able to have a centralized system that brings that communication, brings that collaboration, and bring that connection like Vertice, that's a game changer. That's a win for CFOs.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the other areas, for example, specifically in that product areas that we've introduced tagging for costs, which then allows the CFO to work out, what is my cost of serve? How profitable are this customer segment or this geography? And you can work with your cloud engineers to really make that happen through Vertice, and both parties benefit because the business has much better information. The cloud engineers understand why you need that information, and so you've got a common foundation, as you said, from which to build.
Business pain translated to business productivity, that equals value.
Exactly.
Awesome. Hey, my last question I have for every guest, Eldar, on For the Love of Finance. One last question I have for you is, what does people over profit mean to you?
Well, I remember when I first started my career, I worked at an organization. They said that people are our greatest asset. I didn't quite believe them at the time. I was very young, and I thought that they were overworking me, and they didn't really believe in their phrase when they said people are our greatest asset. But as I've seen more, experienced more, I've really understood that it all comes down to that. Without great people in your organization that can push forward, drive forward with enthusiasm and good judgment and humor, you can't achieve anything. So we try and invest where we can in our people, try and hire the best talent. And for us, that's the way to ensure that we survive and thrive and succeed and have fun along the way.
Absolutely, man. You got to have fun. If you're not having fun in business, it's like, what are you really
what's
doing?
The point?
What's
Exactly.
the point? Hey, Eldar, thank you so much for this time. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for everybody stepping through and listening to this great conversation on For the Love of Finance. Make sure to check this out. If you really enjoyed this conversation, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share it amongst your network, and catch you on the next For the Love of Finance.